7 minutes. My phone rang 7 minutes before I was due at the microphone. The call confirmed what my heart already knew. My father had just died. I had a decision to make. Walk up to the microphone for an audience that was waiting for me, or collapse into my own grief. When I had left town, my father was actively dying. I did not want to go, but honoring him meant leaving anyway. When I said goodbye, I knew I would never share air with my father again. To understand, you need to know my father. The refrain of his life was Wunderbar, Wunderbar. Isn't this wonderful? Translated, it means wonderful, wonderful. Isn't this wonderful? I was raised a third culture kid, moving around the world, and along the way, the places that we lived wove into the fabric of our family. In 1976, we moved to Munich. The German language wrapped around our native tongue for the rest of our lives. My father and I developed our own cadence. Every phone call began with, "Grüß Gott, wie geht's es Ihnen?" The other would reply, "Es geht mir gut." A few more sentences later, we would slip back into the English language. My father was my anchor, my safe place. He was fundamentally sane and grounding. I have spent my entire life driven to make him proud, not because he demanded it, but because he inspired it. Nearly every day he would declare, "Wunderbar, Wunderbar, isn't this wonderful?" I heard it so often that it is tattooed on my right foot in his handwriting. It was not a question, it was a full-throated declaration. His words echoed through my magical childhood, rebellious teens, and into adulthood during our after-dinner walks, alpine climbs, or simply passing a field covered in fresh manure. Walking beside him for a lifetime, I learned to see the wonder in everything, even the hard stuff, maybe even more in the struggle. You see, my father was terrified of heights, not uncomfortable, terrified. And yet he believed that the best views are from the highest points. So we climbed everything, mountains, steeples, castles, everything. On a hike in Montana, I watched him cross a narrow mountain ridge on his hands and knees, groaning through every single inch. Echoed all around us. It was one of our many moments that I witnessed my father be afraid and do it anyway. Fear had no power over him. He would not allow it to steal the view from the top, where he would declare, "Wunderbar, Wunderbar, isn't this wonderful?" That was the lesson that he lived out loud right in front of me, in every way, big and small. He was also a very private man. He declared it forbidden, when as a teenager, I wanted to submit a story to Reader's Digest magazine that involved our cat, a fruit bowl, and what my father insisted was banana juice. It wasn't. But that's a story for another day. Years later, I wrote our entire history in my memoir, even the banana juice story. He read every page, and then he told everyone to buy his daughter's book. Somewhere along the way, he decided that supporting his storytelling daughter mattered more than his deep-rooted desire for privacy. He had reinvented himself before. When I was 12 years old, my father got sober. One day he just stopped and rebuilt himself from alcoholic to health food nut and exercise fanatic. Alcoholism can run in families, so when I was forced to get sober 34 years ago, I already knew the way. Because I had watched him. And then years later, we experienced our greatest heartbreak together when my mother, the love of his life, died. As she was actively dying, people came to say goodbye. My father told me, in no uncertain terms, "I do not want that." He pleaded that when his time came, I was just to let him wander into the woods to die alone. And then the kidnapper of history arrived, Alzheimer's. It took him one small piece at a time, so we adapted the way we always did, together. The roles reversed. I went to rescue him, and we created a new rhythm in our lives. I became his voice and his advocate. To my father, practice was how you prepare for life. So we began to practice everyday moments. He wanted to do his best at every little thing. We practiced finding the right door, unlocking it, hanging up his keys, turning on the light, walking to his chair, sitting down. We practiced going to bed, getting up, and going to breakfast, and all of life's little things. The next day, we'd do it again, and again, and again, until those small routines became muscle memory. I knew the end was near when suddenly he physically could no longer go on his daily walks. It tore my heart open to obey his advanced care directive. Within weeks, I requested a hospice evaluation. When it was done and he was placed in hospice, my father wanted to practice dying. The very moment the door closed behind them, he demonstrated by laying back, folding his arms across his chest, closing his eyes as he said, "After you leave, I'm going to lay back like this, and then poof, that will be that." He was dying of a terminal case of life, and he was going to do it well. On one of our last evenings together, I helped him settle into bed. His eyes were already closed when he called out, "Vielen Dank." Then he quietly translated, "Many thanks." He had thanked me 1,000 times over the 3 years that I cared for him, but I knew this time was different. He never spoke another German phrase to me again. On May 4th, I boarded a plane to Reno. I was scheduled to speak on the first day and the last day of an event there. Others were traveling to be there too. No one would have blamed me if I had backed out. What made the decision for me was this: keeping my commitments mattered to my father, and his deepest desire was to slip out gently, so gently that I wouldn't miss a step. On May 5th, 7 minutes before I was supposed to walk to the podium, my phone rang. I already knew. I stepped into the hallway. The nurse confirmed he was gone. Quietly, alone, no vigil, no audience. Poof, that was that. Exactly as we had practiced. I called my family as I asked my host to buy me a few minutes, and then I paced. Fear gripped me, but I am my father's daughter. So I practiced living in my very first moment in a world without my anchor. And then I did it anyway. I walked back in, stepped up to the microphone, and just before I began, I looked past the audience. Maybe it was grief, maybe it was a memory, but I could sense him there, like he always was, cheering me on, smiling, almost amused as he declared, "Wunderbar, Wunderbar, isn't this wonderful?"